Okay, yeah, we've got the recording started, Alexa. Thank you for that reminder. So we're all set to go, and I'm taking
well, welcome to TUID's board meeting. Let's first check if everybody is here. Let's do a little check-in. Mike, Amy.
Hi.
Here.
Yeah, and I'm here. So the board is here, every single board member. Which is kind of easy. There are only 3. Hey, Ray.
Hey, Alexa.
Are you traveling?
I'm sitting out in the truck right now in front of the lodge.
Okay. Not traveling very far.
Uh.
Okay. John wrote up an agenda. I think it's perfect. So, Mike, Amy, are we good accepting that? If you are, maybe a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll
You're
second
done?
the
Okay.
motion.
Okay, everybody in favor, say aye and wave.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I just read the minutes from last meeting. I thought they were perfect, or at least good enough. Mike, Amy, you have anything, any corrections on the minutes from last time?
I don't.
I don't, Alexa.
Okay, do we need to formally approve that? If so,
Yes.
somebody can make a motion and second that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I second the motion.
Okay, everybody in favor, say aye and wave.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I don't have my text for the review of handling electronic meetings. There was a statute in COVID time that said that we could do that without an anchor location, and that's what we're still doing. That's the short version. Public comment. We like public comments. We have 15 minutes if needed for members of the public to talk. About 3 minutes. Anybody who wants to say something? We have members of the public.
Yeah, we got Jim Bell and Dan Largent there, it looks like.
Okay. Jim, Dan, if you want to say anything, this is your chance. And if not, then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is to confirm the next meeting on December 13th. And we might have to push that out to 6 o'clock to comply with rules about budgets and rate setting. I also made a schedule for next year. Mike, how do you know how we do that? Do we have to formally approve that, or can we just publish that on the public notice site?
I'm not exactly sure if we have to formally approve it. I know that we do have to publish it, set the agenda. I think it says we're supposed to set the agenda at the beginning of each year and then publish it, or set this meeting schedule. Sorry, not the agenda.
Your meeting stand, okay. Well, since you already have it, and just plop it on the public notice site. John, can you do that at some point?
Yeah, we'll put that on the public notice site, and we can of the items that can be changed, if needed. That is possible with advance notice. It's not as stringent. It's a courtesy, but it's also a professional thing to do. But I do want to comment on that subject. It looks like, I don't know if you guys saw the note I sent you, that we do need to look at adopting a draft for the 2024 budget in a formal meeting. And it has to
Mhm.
have a 7-day advance posting for public viewing, which, I agree, obviously, that makes sense. But we may need to look at something quickly at the end of November to do that and adopt it. And then it needs to have that 7 days. So we would make that adoption of it and along with the amendments on that December meeting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but it looks like that's going to be the case.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we need a separate, a special meeting for that budget, or we can just do that on the scheduled December meeting?
It looks like we're going to because we need to adopt a draft and the draft needs to be adopted via resolution formally. And then you have to display that draft for 7 days for review before
Yeah.
adopting, that as the budget.
Okay, and we're not ready to adopt a draft? No, we're not ready to adopt a draft right now, right?
No, because it has to also be done at 6 or 6:30 p.m. We have to treat it just like a hearing for adopting a regular budget.
Okay, so we need to find a date for a next meeting. Do we want to do that right now?
If we can look that over, if it's up to you guys, or if we need to coordinate and then announce that, too, on the public website, and of course on, for
Yeah,
email
Mhm.
too, we'll be glad to do that for,
we can look at the calendar right now. Let me find my calendar. Sorry, a little slow. Yeah, so our next meeting is scheduled for the 13th. So we need the last week of November.
yeah, if there's something we can agree on to make that fit, then it doesn't have to be, it can be specifically to, go over that draft, which I would be glad to send that out to the
Mm.
public in advance and post on the site in advance notice. And then it can be
Yeah,
specifically
because
about
yeah,
adopting the draft.
okay, and then it needs to be on the site on the 20. I'm looking at the 29th or maybe the 30th.
Yeah, Wednesday or a Thursday.
Yeah, well, we can stick to the Wednesdays and just do it at 6:30 at 6 o'clock.
On the 29th.
Does that
I'm
work for
good with that.
everyone?
I'm good with that.
You say 6
Amy?
o'clock? 6 o'clock? That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. We will do that at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I'm putting that on my calendar because if I don't, it will just leak out of my brain immediately. Okay. Back to the Zoom. Okay. So, and then a week before that, we can have both the amended 23 and 24 on the website and announce the meeting.
Correct. Yeah, the amendments aren't we can put those in there too to adopt just those amendments, which are going to be the fuel and the repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
But the actual draft budget for 24 does need that process. And what I'll do is I'll send that out. We send out for that. I'll also send out through our customer email list and attach that budget,
Yeah.
for people's review. And of course, we've simplified that, to make it easy and combine some categories as well.
Sounds good. So do you want to slide directly into the manager's report, which is then, John, is the next item on the agenda?
Yeah, yes, I'll do that. I'm gonna share some of that with Ray from his updates, in too. But for me, it's and again, what I sent you guys, it's really business as usual. We got through the rally with no issues there, so that's always a good thing with when you add excess people in our system. So that part was good. And you guys saw the list that I've attached of ongoing repair and maintenance items, which is a lot of cleaning. you guys saw the transformers, exercising water valves and repainting some of those to identify a little easier as they faded. Same with the water meter lids too. We're working on all that and just general cleanup like debris. As I mentioned in well house yard number 1, that can be a wind hazard, and cleaning around the solar fields there. So all that's normal. Just an ongoing process to keep items, clean and in their place and organized. And also too, just working on, a few items, a well source protection plan for well number 2 that was overdue, but I'm working with the state on that to get that updated and in place. And also just, for me as the operator here, working on continuing education and certifications to keep some up to date and get some new ones on the wastewater and cross connection plans too. So that's, it's really business as normal for us on those items. And with that, I'll pass to Ray Golden for any updates that he has as well.
Thank you, John. Can you all hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. So and John and I have a meeting today with our staff right after this meeting at 3:00 to go over that punch list with everybody, that we can do just about everything that's on John's list of to-dos. But so the major thing I wanted to just make comment on to the Board of Trustees is that in the past 2 meetings, we've had some public comment that has concerned me as in the spirit of transparency to design and formulate a task force that's made up of myself, Mr. Motley, Ms. Malone, and Tim Kelly. When things come to our attention, we hope that, and we would encourage the town residents or anybody of the members of the public who have a concern to come to the TUID office. It's pretty much manned 5 days a week. I think the hours, John, 9 to 5, if I'm not mistaken, and let us know what it is so that we can look into it. But when it's brought up into public comment, I feel that we're going to use this task force to investigate that those problems that some people are experiencing, and then equally, I feel like we should comment on them publicly so that it is addressed properly. And the first one was on September 13th. One of the residents at Tickaboo had commented on a foul smell that was in their water system, and I just wanted to let you know what we did about that. So Mr. Motley and Ms. Malone went over to the house in question. They smelt it, they tasted the water, they checked it out, and they didn't see anything that was of concern. So they went back to do a water sample during our normal September water sampling of the wells, and nobody was at that house. So Mr. Motley went down from there to the TUID residence and took a water sample and turned it in. That was a cost of $25 to the district to test that, and it came back negative for any contaminants. So those findings are posted at the office, and I believe that pretty much resolved that issue for the month of September. Last month, October 11th, one of the residents brought up there was they had said that if we were able to access Mr. Shortreed's emails, that there would potentially be something on there about some land that was partnered with BLM next to the generators. So the very next morning, I reached out to the BLM director of the Hanksville field office, which is Sue Five Coats. And I had just simply asked her. Someone in attendance remarked that Mr. Chip Shortreed, former manager of TUID, had been in contact with the regional director of BLM and had a deal worked out to secure use of the BLM land north of the Tickaboo generator plant for such purposes. Can you tell me if there's any truth to that? And I'll skip through all the niceties and salutations, but Sue Five Coat responded just a couple hours later, and she said, I was involved during those years that solar was being discussed for the Tickaboo area. There was never an application submitted through the BLM for a facility. There are several alternatives and locations discussed, but those never resulted in a right-of-way application. I do believe an area near the current generator was discussed, as well as a much larger area near the Garfield County landfill. Solar development on BLM land does require going through a right-of-way process and environmental analysis prior to issuance of any authorizations. Further on in the process, TUID was working with a third-party contractor with the idea of establishing a solar field large enough to provide power to Tickaboo and the parcels near offshore marina, and also selling power to Glen Canyon NRA. At that time, they were working with Trust Lands Administration to place the facilities on a portion of state section. BLM's involvement with that process was for the transmission line right-of-way, which was proposed at the edge of the highway right-of-way north to the Tickaboo town site. As a solar field proposal wasn't pursued, neither was the utility right-of-way. She went on finally to say, I have included Mike Utley, our realty specialist, on this reply, just to keep him informed in case he remembers any additional details of the previous proposal. If Tickaboo were to relook at a proposal that includes BLM lands, it would need to be addressed through the realty staff. So that concern that was brought up in the October 11th meeting, just for public record, there was never anything ever that came of it, and we'd have to go through the whole process again to we never went through it, but we'd have to go through this process to establish any type of solar field outside of the Tickaboo Township. So I just wanted the board members to know that in the spirit of transparency, we have formulated this task force. So if there are issues that come about in the future, we're going to investigate them and we'll report on them on public record so that people know what's going on there. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, and I don't think we should if anybody has an issue, then you guys are there all the time, and it might be easier just to go talk to you guys rather than bring it up in a meeting and then we have to bring it up in the next meeting to resolve it. And some things are just simple and needs to be addressed with direct communication. But since it was brought up in previous board meetings, I do appreciate the thoroughness of circling back and reporting on the record.
Yeah, Lex, if I can, I'll comment. Yeah, certainly. Like I said, we've purposefully expanded hours and put a business accessible location here. So certainly come in. I mean, nothing's too small or no question's too frivolous. Part of our business goal here is to answer every question. The more people know, the more that helps everybody out. So there's no dumb question or wrong question when it comes to that. But yeah, stop by, email, call. We may redact winter hours slightly, but we'll still have, our overall goal of increasing accessible hours to our staff here, with, me included, is exponentially still in effect with that. So yeah, anything like that, everybody's welcome, and every question and comment is going to be taken seriously. And as Ray said too, and we also investigate that. We don't let anything slide by. So and I'll restate my goals too. I've talked about these in the past, and it does take time. It ties in with doing things like a well source protection plan that was due in July of 2022, not 23, 2022. That I'm working on the update. Once those items are caught up, then I want to move to a next stage of being more proactive than reactive, and that means more regular email updates and even something like a newsletter, to send out to people too. I really want to keep people informed, above and beyond them having to reach out and give them any updates, and that'll also include more frequent updates on the website too.
Thank you, John. Do you have anything else to report on that's not on the agenda under item 8?
I don't have anything offhand to report. Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, so item number 8 is about the budget amendments and the 24 budget and a new chart of accounts. Maybe you can, since we're going to go over the details of the budget amendments, a little bit in item number 9, but definitely in detail on the meeting that we just scheduled at the end of November. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about the simplified version, so people, when they do get to see the budget, they'll know what to expect.
Yeah, certainly. And we did touch some on that to begin with, as far as amending a meeting needed to adopt that 2024 draft. So we've touched some on that, but to expand on that, the change of the budget itself is just the simplification is just combining some expenses. And I think I've used an example where the internet and phone expense was in 5 different areas. We just put that in one area. It makes it easier to read. And when you need, if you need to allocate something, then you can do so, by dividing in your head or on paper or a calculator by 3 or by 5. So it just simplifies that and looking it over, and how you look at things, and that way you see exactly what income and expenses are. So nothing really changes in, the total amount we're budgeting. It's just how it's presented, to put that down into one page. And if any entity needs, more detail, then we're able to do that through an accounting process. But I think it's important that the public be able to look over a budget and, interpret it fairly easily. So that's what we're doing there with that. And that'll be, as we mentioned, put out to the public a week before it's adopted. And we'll even put it the draft. The draft is really one that's, we have pretty much done. We just need to formalize it and put it out there. For the touch on the 2023 amendments, state auditor requires you not to spend more than you have budgeted. And budgets, they're defined as an educated guess. So in this case, the 2 items that have gone above what was budgeted are fuel and repair and maintenance on the generators. So there's no real surprise there, but fuel was budgeted at $2 a gallon for 2023. Unfortunately, our average cost of diesel has been $3.68 a gallon. In comparison, for previous year, 22, it was budgeted also at $2 a gallon, and the average cost there was $3.98 a gallon. So we're obligated to amend that budget to what actual costs were. And of course, repair and maintenance, on the form of power generation that we do is always, again, you don't know, what's going to happen. So we've had costs there related to communications and items like block heaters. I think I mentioned the breaker for one of them. That's a critical part too. So just those items, we're obligated to go back and amend, for the public and the state to show what those costs actually were, which is not uncommon. But that'll also involve just changing those and submitting them. The public gets to see them, obviously, and then the state gets uploaded those too.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments on that? Any of the board members? If not, I'd like to move on to the discussion of a possible fuel surcharge. And to illustrate that, I made a little PowerPoint, which, if everyone is okay with that, I'd like to show. See, share screen. You guys now see my screen with a big red rock thing?
Yes.
Ah, good. I don't know why it doesn't show on my screen. I feel a little left out the loop. So John just mentioned that fuel has for 2023 be budgeted at $2 a gallon, which was clearly wishful thinking. for 2024, we're thinking of budgeting it, and this is, I guess this is a sneak preview of coming attractions because it's going to show what's going to be in our budget for 2024. And while we were working on the budget, we noticed that we could, that with our, I don't know if you can see me pointing at stuff if I circle around
Yep.
it. Our expected revenue from different sources is $489,000 for the whole year of 2024. John and I worked on the expense side of it, and we found that if we put the fuel we need, which is about 80,000 gallons of fuel in there for $3 a gallon, and then we add the other expenses to it, which have pretty much been pared down to the minimum, that we would come to a balanced budget. Now we all know that right now diesel fuel cannot be bought for $3 a gallon. Our latest load came in at $3.89. So if we pay more than $3 a gallon for fuel, then we're going to run a structural deficit, which is not sustainable. We've been able to fill the gap between what we can afford to pay and what we're actually paying by selling lots, by writing on some revenue that was in our reserve account from selling lots before this year. But we now have one lot left. So from going forward, we need to be able to cover our expenses with our revenue. So our fuel consumption is about 80,000 gallons per year. And we sell about 470,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. So when fuel costs more than $3 a gallon, we need to charge extra. Otherwise, we're just going to run out of money. We fairly recently had an event where we had to wait to pay a bill. Yeah, I'll make surcharge. I can spell honest. No, apparently not. Yeah, there we go. Where we had to wait to pay a bill until some money came in. That made me feel very uneasy because first that happens and then things get worse. Well, let's not fiddle with that. So the important numbers from this slide, I'm going to go in the weeds a little bit, is $80,000, 80,000 gallons of fuel, and 470 kilowatt hours of electricity. So if fuel, like the last time, is $3.89 a gallon, then we're going to spend $311,000 on gas. Our budget only covers 240 of that. That's the 80,000 times 3. So we'll end up having a shortfall of $71,000, which comes out at 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Now that of course changes depending on the actual price of fuel. If it's only $3.20, we only need 2.8 extra cents. if it's 420, we need 16.8 extra cents to prevent running at a structural deficit. So our proposal is every month after John and Connie run out and do all the meter readings, for them to do the calculation based on the most recent load of fuel that came in, and charge everyone an additional amount of money based on the most recent fuel prices. And that is painful. And I realize that, but in the end, you just have to pay for things what they cost. Last week, I was, oh, let's back up a little bit. This whole budget does not include any money for rebuilding the generators. That does not mean that that is not necessary. It means that for now, we're just hoping and praying that our trek to the Utah Division of Energy with a grant request is going to be successful. I was at a meeting last week. John dialed into that meeting, and we were asking for $140,000 grant to help us pay for the rebuild of the generators. It's going to be a while before we know if that is successful. But at that meeting, I told the story of how we're kind of in a vicious cycle where electricity is really expensive. That leads to people maybe having to move out of Tickaboo and business closing, which leads to more expensive power for the remaining businesses and residents, and in the vicious cycle. And I thought I was laying it on a little bit thick, and I decided, and I thought maybe I should remove that slide. And now I'm seeing this happen in front of my face. Right after we started talking about the fuel surcharge, there was talk about closing the hotel for winter. So it's like, well, maybe I wasn't laying it on too thick. Maybe I was just describing what is actually happening. So I don't know. If anybody has any better ideas, I'd be completely open to that. And I'm also willing to sit down with anyone of the board, of the staff, of the public, of the residents, of the businesses, and just go through this stuff in detail and see if anybody has better ideas than we do. But for now, this is where we are. Questions, comments, board, staff, businesses. I would even invite any of the public that's still hanging on to comment or ask any questions.
Yeah, I would just like to add a little bit to that if I can.
Absolutely.
Everybody on the board's heard me use this analogy probably too much. I was watching the news the other day, and they said cranberry sauce had gone up 15% from last Thanksgiving. And for me, it's not a choice. I have to have cranberry sauce with my turkey. But for some people, it's a choice. Now, making that Grand Canyon size leap to electricity, it's a necessity for life, but it just shows how everything has gone up, for us as consumers, unfortunately, from any commodity, and obviously fuel being one of the main ones of our, world economy, not just here. So everything is going up, unfortunately, and it, you know, doesn't show signs of coming down. So that's, you know, obviously the driver for this too. But part two, you know, we reached out to UAMPS, which is the, you know, Association of Power Providers in Utah, which is, you know, it's good to look at your peers. And one thing we asked them is, you know, what other districts like Tickaboo can we reach out to see what they're doing? And their answer was there are none like you. You're one of the last diesel generating districts there are. There's really, you're it. There is. So what we did next is look at the next closest, and they do have these charges too. They look for items like fuel where they buy their power and their costs go up, and they use very similar formulas up to and including one of them that, you know, reached out to me had even catastrophic equipment failure in there too. So it's not unheard of and not unmodeled, you know, for this to be something that utilities do. And it's not just Tickaboo, it's, you know, it's really a utility wide problem, you know, and cost associated with it too for that. So, and as Alexa said, you know, so to specify what the bill that was due, and it's very relevant to this, we just had to pay $26,000 in an electrical bond. Well, that's the generators. So we're to the point where obviously we still owe money on generators quite a bit, but they've reached their need for a rebuild, two of them. So you're still paying on your original purchase, but you're also due about, at the end of the day, it's probably $200,000 more to renew, you know, the two main ones, the C9s, what's there. So it's quite a predicament that you haven't paid them off yet. They're due for, you know, a major cost too. What that leads to is, you know, solar is known to pay for itself many times over. A panel, they say you're buying the panel. You're not buying the panel. You're buying the electricity it generates, and that's what they mean by that. It's really the opposite of a diesel generator. So that's what's driving us to look forward. You know, we're not taking this in stride and saying this is, you know, okay or normal. We're also looking, you know, it's been talked about. I think Alexa pointed out 45 years for alternative energy in Tickaboo. Personally, I didn't know Tickaboo had been here that long. So, you know, we really want to be the, you know, somehow there's a tipping point where it goes from being talked about and time and money spent on studies to something actually happening. At least the environment with the grants available is a very favorable environment for that. So we are pushing, you know, pushing forward and not saying this is okay. You know, it is concerning as people who run this, you know, too, and as consumers to, you know, to look at having to do things. And if you look at past budgets, there's always a category that says cash to balance. Well, the last one was 122,000. Well, that you have to have a place that cash comes from, and that's what we're actually doing. It's called pencil whipping when you put in money to balance a budget. You don't know where it's coming from, so we have to be realistic and not think that $122,000 is going to fall from the sky on this. But one last thing too, I want to clarify, and we talked about it in our public meeting in October, and we mentioned going to look at a microgrid in Tucson possibly as a working model. I did get some feedback that I think is where it came from, that we were getting money to go to Phoenix to buy used solar equipment. I do want to dispel that publicly. That was not we haven't talked about that or thought about that. So I assume that the discussion of visiting the working solar grid in Tucson is where that came from, but that's, you know, that's not the case. But would I take used solar? I would, because it would be cheaper than what we're looking at, you know, now.
Thanks, John.
And Alexa, Alexa,
Mhm.
may I? So I just want to say that, you know, budgets, finance, stuff like that, that's kind of my forte. And I'm really impressed with the job that you and Mike and Amy have done. But what's even more commending is that you've pulled together a think tank. And that think tank consisted of, you know, one of our owners, two of our owners, and UAMPS and various people in the energy business to come up with a good plan. That's a good plan of attack. It's got a good offense and it's got a good defense, and that's what wins games. And I just wanted to put that out there that everybody understands that it wasn't just a hat trick. I think y'all put together a very good coalition of very intelligent people that have helped us drive to this conclusion and start looking for the results that will move us into the future.
Thank you, Ray. That is a good segue to the next agenda item, unless anybody wants to talk about the surcharge some more.
I'd just like to say something real quick, Alexa. You
Okay.
know, I think the good old days of $2 and $3 a gallon diesel and it being sustainable for long periods of time are over. And I really see this as the future of the district. It's going to have to be a mainstay in the district. But the one thing I really like about it is, you know, as we get close to our budgeted price, you know, the cost goes down. But if the cost is out of our control, you know, the cost has got to go up, as John referred to. And we're going to have to, you know, really start paying attention to, you know, a maintenance account to where we can handle those rebuilds when they come, without looking for funding and doing different things. So there's a lot to rework and redo, and the economic environment is making it challenging. But as Ray was saying, we've got a good team. There's a lot of good people. We're going to do some good things.
Thank you, Mike. Let me so this is a slide that I presented at the grant interview, and the purpose of that slide was to show that we're not just spreading gloom and doom, woe is me, and we need money to drag us out of the hole, but that we also have, which is true, but that we also have a plan to move to a better situation. And I've been thinking about it as the 3-step plan. And that idea has kind of just solidified in my mind, which I found very entertaining. And step 1 is what we just talked about in the previous agenda item, and that is an immediate financial stabilization, and make sure that our regular revenue is covering our regular operating costs. And I won't say any more about that. And then we need to move to step 2. And for the interview that I prepared this slide for, that was the focus of the discussion, is that to make sure that the machinery that we have will keep working. Because everything depends on those generators actually physically producing power. If the generators go down, then we have no power. So I think it's really important to maintain them right. And I think John has done and his team has done an incredible job to just catch up on the smaller deferred maintenance that needed to be done, to anything from just oil changes and regular cleanings to just keeping the shop clean. But that doesn't mean that we don't have large deferred maintenance that we have to deal with. And we're hoping, praying that next year we're gonna get some money to get that done, because clearly there is no money in our budget to do that. We have no assets left to sell. we have a little bit of money in our reserve account that can be the matching grant the matching funds that this grant is asking for. So if we get that grant, then we can rebuild the 2 generators, and we are, after step 2, at least in our current situation, stable. I think, and thank you, John, for reminding me, that also needs that we put some money aside on an annual basis to prepare for the next rebuild. Because 10 years seems far away, but next thing you know, it's going to be 2033. And be ready for the next rebuild or the next major maintenance. Step 3 is the most ambitious because it involves a move from pure diesel generation to solar generation and battery storage. And we've gone through many iterations of that. And like John said, the climate for these kind of things is good. There has, in all the bipartisan and Biden infrastructure world, there has to be a little money somewhere to help us go on that path. As an alternative, maybe there's somebody out there, we looked at it for like the whole corridor all the way down to the Bullfrog Marina, but maybe there's somebody out there who is willing to just set up shop and sell us power. Maybe looping in our generators, our distribution system, and just focus it on Tickaboo, not think too big. I know Bob is always talking about thinking big, but I think thinking big has been the downfall of some of our previous initiatives. I think we should start thinking about Tickaboo and stabilize our environment in our little section, and then move out from there. Once we're stable, we can think about looping in adventurous new technology, lines to the offshore marina and the Bullfrog block, or duplicate anything that is even this for our little Tickaboo section is a really big thing for my mind to wrap around, to think of how we're going to get there. And my thought is to just stick to our little world and move and get that stable and move out from there. So that's the optimistic note that I wanted to end on. I have one more slide that shows in detail, in a little bit of detail, of our grant application. This grant, it's like one little chapter in many pages of bills. It has a 5-digit number and a letter, which I assume is indicative of the number of paragraphs that's in the entire bill. We've asked for $180,000 for the rebuild of 2 generators and $30,000 to identify some other deficiency of the grid. This grant requires a 33% match. That we have a little bit of money in our reserve account. We have 90,000 in our reserve account. 50,000 is untouchable because we have to keep that to stay in compliance with the loan conditions for our loans. So that is, so we have 40,000 left that we can spend, plus 1 lot, plus 1 trailer. That's it. From that, I think we can scrounge up some money to come up with the match if we get a grant for $140,000. So that was my story. Those were my adventures for the last few weeks.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for putting that together, Alexa. I appreciate that and the work you've done on that as well. And, being as dedicated to anybody living here to that. But I will add just a few more quick comments. So to clarify for the public, as we talk about, money and what we do and don't have and the reserve fund, we basically, I call it 50,000. I think the actual number is 48 or 49, but I just say 50. You're required to keep that by law in account. You really can't do anything with it. And as you said, Alexa, it's almost like you don't have it. You have to understand the reason why we do. It's for emergencies, but then again, you're very limited on what you can, do with it. So we're not broke, but it's just when those, bills come all together, like that, then your outflow outpaces your inflow, when you have big bills like that. But, as a management company too, we've had conversations for years, about just business down here in general, and we push more and more to talk about power. So again, there's a lot of work behind the scenes and pushing to get, we have current candidate for governor that's actively here and involved, and other people from the governor's office and officials. And so power comes up quite often as a major stumbling block. So we do push, more and more for Tickaboo. I mean, it's imperative that, we look to the future. And as I mentioned before, actually do something about it. And one of the things they've looked at in the past, and I'm not sure this is the reason for failure, but it was always involving bullfrog. And when you're trying to cross those governmental lines into the federal government, that, may or may not happen, in the foreseeable future. But our motto that we talked about, as Ray mentioned, the think tank is, hey, take care of Tickaboo first. We're looking to do what's good for Tickaboo, and if somebody else is interested in coming aboard, then they're more than welcome to. But we're not trying to group everything together and just throw additional roadblocks. Our first goal is to take care of Tickaboo, where we're invested, and hopefully other people would be on board with that too. But I just want to let, publicly, we push it really daily, and it's a thought and a conversation daily to try to, make that happen.
I'm trying to get me to stop sharing the screen, and I'm not sure how to do that. Can you do that for me?
I was looking,
No.
Alexa. I want to see. I do not see on my controls. Yeah.
I
Well,
have
hey,
screen sharing meeting, and I can't bring that screen up for some reason.
yeah, on my screen sharing, Alexa, it only allows me. Let's see if I can stop that here. See if I can do this.
There you go.
There it is. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So, well, does anybody want to add anything to all this? Any questions, any suggestions, any comments?
I will one more time, and I know Mike and I spoke about this too, and Mike had a good point. Mike said we have to be fair and make sure any formula that we come up with for any surcharges works equitably. And I agree with that. If you think about it, So this is something that we're open to input, as you mentioned to Alexa. I don't think we're saying that is the formula. We want to do, what works. And again, obviously any extra money is a tough one for anybody, which is completely understandable. But if we need to, beat this formula up, look at it and revise it, and that includes, again, going to our closest peers who use the same formula, then we'll, do that too, and make sure it's equitable and mathematically, and in practice works for everybody. But yeah, we are looking to cut costs any and every way that, that we can otherwise, from the maintenance that we do, and just anything to save money and cost is the other way that we're looking at. You can't cut a cost to the fact that it comes back to hurt you, such as things where you do have funds for rebuilds. But we're looking to cut costs, other ways, and I believe we have, to date on that too. But yeah, back to the formula. Yeah, any input's welcome, and it's just going to have to work, for everyone involved.
I was just thinking we should probably put in put the, if we do decide to implement a surcharge, we should probably put it on an agenda mid-year, like in our July meeting in 2024, and review and report
Yeah, agreed.
on how it went. That we shouldn't go a whole year without talking about it again in public. So are we ready to move to the next agenda item?
I think so.
And it says board reports. I mean, I've said everything I have to report. So Mike, Amy, you have any
I just have,
Any-
I spoke with ECI, Troy over at ECI the other day for a while. He gave me a call and we just talked about a lot of different things, as far as operationally, and I asked him about the solar array for well number 2 and told him we were having issues and they were going to start working on that, see if they could figure out what the size was on that and maybe get that a scheduled visit to see what's going on with it so we can get that back online, get it running that well pump too.
Yeah, that'd be great to know that those solar panels are not just standing there gathering dust in the middle of the desert.
Yep. That's all I have.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Mike. Amy?
I don't have anything, Alexa. Thank you.
Okay, well, the next item is described as the next scheduled meeting December 13th, which is no longer true because we scheduled a meeting on, was it the 29th?
November 29th at 6 p.m.
Okay, so we have a meeting on November 29 at 6 o'clock. And then we have the December meeting at 13 to introduce amended budget 23 and new budget 24, and December 13 also at 6 o'clock to make a final decision on that. So unless anyone wants to add anything, say anything.
Like I said, I'll just add that, yeah, I'll get that next meeting on the website. We'll have
Yeah.
21 days notice, and I'll even email our customer list too as an additional courtesy to let them know about that. And
sounds good. And yeah, and if you can somehow mention that we're talking about fuel surcharges,
certainly.
that when the bill for January 24 comes around, that does not that it's not completely unexpected.
Certainly.
Yeah. Be great, and it may get people to tune into the meeting so that when they do have to swallow really hard for their higher bill, that they at least know have had the chance to know how we came to that decision.
Sure.
So unless anyone has anything else to say, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thanks, Amy.
I'll second.
Everybody in favor, say aye and wave.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon.
Difficult stuff.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Bye.